Hey, Shyhards, welcome to a special bonus episode of Meet Us at Molly's. We usually do this every year. Last year, we unfortunately could not, but we're back this year. So happy to be joined by Chicago Med writer Stephen Hootstein. Hootstein or Hootstein? I never say it right.
Oh, well, Steen. Yes.
Steen, okay. It's been 2 years. I'm rusty.
I know. Well, my there's a lot of pronunciation issues that go generations back. So we'll just stick with Hootstein.
Okay. We are also joined by Chicago Med co-executive producer Meridith Friedman. It's Meredith's first time on the podcast. Welcome.
I'm very excited and honored to be here.
We're excited to have
We're
you.
so excited.
Yeah. So as I said before, we didn't get to do this last year. There was a little thing called a strike going on. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that. We're going to talk about the season. It's the annual chat we always do where we just kind of recap the year. So we will just jump on in. Okay, so first and foremost, this was a season unlike any other. So we have 13 episodes compared to the normal 22. It was delayed because of the strikes. What were some of the early challenges that you guys came across in planning for the season when everything came together as fast as it did?
Well, obviously, fast. That lot, was the critical word. We were, I think, proudly the first show back of any scripted show in the entirety of TV that had written and produced a show post-strike and got it up and running, which is a great, thing to pat our back on, but in trying to get it done required certainly quicker turnaround than anything we've experienced since for season one, So that was the biggest. I don't know.
That was hugely challenging. We also had a shorter shooting period than we normally do. So we normally shot episodes and I think it was 8 days with a double up day. This season, it was 7 days and a double up day. So even in the writing of the show, we had to take that into account, and that might affect the number of scenes or sort of how big the scenes were. The more people in a scene, the longer it's going to take to shoot. So we also had to take that into consideration when we were actually writing the episodes.
We also had a new creative team behind the scenes in Chicago. There was our new producing director, Anna DeCosa. Great, by the way, and the new DP, Sean. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's either Moore or Mauer. I'm not sure.
I apologize, Sean, if you're
sorry, Sean.
For this,
we love you.
Love you. But what did so that was another thing that we had to get up and running quick, and they obviously did a great job. I don't know how people say that they thought the show looked quote unquote just physically better this year, at least different. I don't know if you guys noticed anything.
Yeah. How long from when the strike was over were you back in the writer's room? Was it just a couple days, a week? How long was it, that time in between?
Well, we had a little, there was the strike was over, but it still hadn't been voted on. It's got to be ratified. And so I'm trying to remember, but it was very quickly. I mean, within a week and a half or 2 weeks, I think.
Wow.
Officially.
Yeah.
Unofficially, we were already we were talking amongst ourselves,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's no secret that, a lot of the actors did less episodes this season, which obviously is out of your control. But how hard did that make crafting arcs for certain people?
It's not ideal, but we, with the 13, it kind of, it was difficult, but it wasn't. I don't know. I thought we were able to manage pretty well, I think. I mean, it definitely there were a couple little moments where you're like, wow, it feels weird that we're this character is not even in this episode after whatever they might have gone through previously. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, amongst the top 10 challenges of getting through the season. You know, it was on there somewhere, but maybe lower down, like 5 or 6, 7. But we miss, you know, everyone obviously misses the character. We certainly miss writing them, and you know, it's just one of these. I'm guessing maybe you'll have questions already, you know, with regards to like the production of a show, and especially a production of a show as part of a franchise that's had so many seasons as us. And then there are certain things that are kind of above my pay grade in terms of like the economics of maintaining a show for this many years. And sometimes these decisions, you know, get made, you know, accordingly, and then you just try to adapt as best you can.
Yeah, I will say what was helpful is we got to decide which episode the character sat out of. So it wasn't like we were told, you're not going to have Archer in this episode. So, like, for example, I think my first episode of the season was episode 3. And that was actually right after Steven's episode where Archer had his transplant. So I was like, okay, I was bummed because I loved to write for Steven Weber, but it was like, well, this makes a lot of sense to just keep Archer out of this episode. He'll be recovering from his transplant. So I think if we had been told, like, this episode, this person has to have been out of, that would have made it exponentially harder to craft their arcs.
Yeah.
So I guess speaking of Archer, obviously we kind of like to start, you know, where last season ended and this season began. And obviously kind of at the end of last season, Archer finds out that he has to wait, you know, the 6 months to get his kidney from Sean. And I guess I'm curious, like, was there ever talk about a scenario where like the kidney donation was never going to happen? Or did you guys know that was kind of going to wrap it up pretty quickly once the season began?
It's interesting. I mean, it's hard to know like what we would have done had there not been a strike.
Right.
You know, that we would have, you know, whether if we were writing in that period in which we were waiting for the donation, whether
Right.
things might have changed or not. And so as it stood, it just seemed to like kind of lay out, you know, let's just get into it, you know, and so yeah, I don't know. It's a good hypothetical. I don't know how to answer otherwise.
Yeah, I felt like because I think we spent so much of last season with, especially the end of last season, with Archer dealing with this health challenge, it might have felt like more of the same if we had sort of kept seeing him have to balance having this with his work life. So it's sort of, I think, actually worked out nicely that we could jump ahead and get to the transplant and kind of move on with the story.
Yeah. And during this time, we did get to meet Archer's ex / Sean's mom. What made now the right time to bring her in?
Yeah, I guess it was just the you know, the seismic aspect of this donation, you know, and it was like kind of not now or never, but it just felt like the opportune moment to bring that in. Paula Marshall was played his ex-wife, and she's fantastic. I think they're actually maybe even friends in real life, Steve and Paula. And I've been such a big fan of hers, you know, going back, you know, many years. I mean, whatever. I'm more about my past than hers, but you know, yeah, we've talked about, you know, because there's so much rich history that we haven't, you know, we still haven't gone over regarding, you know, his marriage, Sean's childhood. We know that there was a long period where they weren't speaking at all. And so it just felt like a good moment to just try to start digging into that a little bit and see, you know, it also helps, I think, shine a light on, you know, we've seen one aspect, you know, over the past year or two with his, you know, relationship with his son and as a father. But now, you know, there's more opportunity with his relationship, you know, romantic relationships moving forward, you know, with Margot, or just like the kind of platonic relationship that he's forged with Hannah. And so, seeing someone from his past kind of helps, shine a light, and give us some way, see, what kind of mistakes he might have made previously, and hopefully things that he can evolve past and move forward on.
Any chance we'll ever see her again, or is that ship kind of like completely sailed?
No, I think we talked about, I can't remember the context in regards to the particular episode of story. I do know that we discussed it and it didn't make sense, again this season, but it was something that we were discussing. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's sort of been implied her character has some demons of her own. So
Yeah.
it feels like we could come back and explore those, especially now that Archer's in a new relationship. What would it mean for her to come back in? So definitely could happen in a future season.
Speaking of Archer, the last time we talked 2 years ago, he was a completely different person. We recorded last night and we were just laughing about how we were like 2 years ago when we talked to Steven, we hated Archer and now he's the best. So we talk all the time about how much we love him and his development. And Meredith, you alluded to it before, but how much have you guys loved writing for him and seeing his characters come so far?
He's so fun to write. I mean, because Steven Weber in a scene, like I remember this the first time I watched him when he came on. Like he was in a scene, he had maybe one line in the scene, and just watching him listen to other people is interesting. Like he's such an spontaneous and organic actor that anything you write, he's going to breathe so much life and originality into it.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard. You got to remember, like, because so much has happened in his life and he's evolved so much, Archer. And so sometimes even as writing, you kind of forget like his core temperament or way of being, hasn't changed, even though like things, maybe the way he deals with certain situations have changed, but like, and he'll basically call you on it. Like, I know that I haven't evolved that much. I still have this little, edge and the little, cynicism and cantankerousness to us, which we love, and but yeah, he's been so fun to write for.
Nice.
It was kind of nice because you guys just watched episode 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like I liked in that episode that you saw a little bit of that old Archer where he made a med student cry but by the end, made amends with her. So it is always important to kind of remember that core of him because it creates great drama with the other doctors.
Yeah. Yeah. We always joke that we would love to just sit down and chat with Steven for hours and just listen to him talk about his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's had a fascinating one.
For sure. So the descriptions for this week's finale are out, and they say, that there's going to be like a big clash between Archer and Sean this week. So I guess obviously it's the last episode of the season. What can you tease about what we're going to see in that finale in regards to that?
Well, one thing when we just talked about like who we could get involved with, we talked about Sean's, path as an addict, and moving forward. And there were so many fascinating, aspects to the recovery process and the way it's changes that are happening and like advances and like thoughts, like the standard operating procedure, so to speak, of how to treat addiction. And so we felt like that was an area that was, rich. So that's kind of where how we created and introduced Margot. And so just as a little teaser, Sean, we introduced Margot because Sean, is working there. But that doesn't mean that, Sean and Margot or Margot and Archer or Sean, Margot, Archer, or Hannah all have the same, ideas about, how to both treat and, how much bandwidth, to give addicts, friends, relationships. So it really comes down to that type where the conflict lies now between Archer and Sean.
So something I've been definitely wanting to ask you guys. So I know a lot of fans, we've heard a lot about it, have really loved seeing the Hannah and Archer friendship kind of develop over the last couple of years. And we're kind of hoping it might even develop into something more. But obviously she's with Ripley now, he's with Margot. And we've gotten a bunch of questions about this even just in like the last week. So like, is that dream about Hannah and Archer dead, or like should fans never say never?
I say never say never. Because I think we all love the Hannah Archer relationship. Like, it's so rich, and I feel like it has so many dimensions. Sometimes it feels really platonic. Sometimes it feels, fatherly. Sometimes it feels like friends. And I love sort of seeing those moments where it becomes different things. And I think we're always going to continue exploring that relationship. And I think, the thing I've always found on shows is as soon as they get together, you kind of lose that tension. So I think we want to keep that tension going, but we wanted to, in order to do that, we have to always keep it remaining a question for as long as possible.
Yeah, again, never say never. But the relationship is so special in a way because we don't have like the normal, guideposts to like basically, oh, it's got to be this or it's got to be that, or it's like, and
Right.
the actors are so skilled, but and their experience and their age range is just like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. There's a little bit of father-daughter, but no, you could look this way and they could be, so it just contains so many multitudes and contradictions that it is a great journey. And it's always fun when you find those things, sometimes they're by accident, sometimes they're planned. I can't remember how I know we started writing stories to that, just in the case that you had Archer, who, can be judgmental and stuff. And then you had this character who obviously had, made some, or had some challenges and made some mistakes probably professionally in their life. And so it naturally was like gonna come to the forefront, but then the happy accident that the two actors, form such a bond, that's something you never really can plan for. And you're always super happy when it breaks your way.
Yeah. So kind of going off that, Hannah and Ripley had their first kiss last week. They hit it off pretty quickly. What do you guys like about them?
I think to an extent of, along the same front, it was like, Hannah, we haven't really seen we haven't really seen the side of her that, as she was introduced in the show, that there is some, depth and darkness and complication to her. And so when we had this character that we introduced, obviously not with the similar backstory, but like, the intimations that there's, some struggles and some demons, that it felt like someone that he could, naturally kind of empathize with and identify with, and vice versa, in Hannah. Obviously we've just kind of started I wouldn't even call it like that they're together. I mean, there's obviously a sexual attraction and chemistry, but they're still like so just starting to, learn about each other. I think we were trying to be very conscious this year of like Hannah being open to new experiences and like kind of, opening up her world a little bit. And that made her, a natural person that we could start like learning more about Ripley through. But, as we move forward, I think, there'll be a little bit more push and pull and certainly challenges to confront.
Yeah. And I think what will end up being potentially a big challenge between them is their relationship to their past. because for Hannah, she so owns her past. Like even in one of their first interactions, he says, you know, can I buy you a drink at the bar? And she says, I'm a recovering addict. So she's so open about putting it out there. Well, as he spent, you know, the whole season, I think he even expressed it in the last episode, his fear to Sully of like, if she knows about my past. So I think that could also be a conflict moving forward, is their own relationships to their past and their willingness to be open with each other about their past challenges.
Steven, you were just talking about how obviously the whole, like, one of Hannah's themes for this season was like her being open into these new experiences. And one of those experiences we saw in an episode was her doing the whole online dating thing. And that ended up leading to like one of probably, I think, Gina and I's favorite storylines of like all time this year with the dick pic. And I'm curious, like, who came up with that idea? Because that was, we were talking about how just like iconic that is now in Chicago Med history.
That was the great Eli Telbert, another writer on the show. And he, I mean, the minute he started talking about that, everybody felt the same way that you guys did. Like it was going to be this iconic story. And Eli did a lot of research, talked to a lot of younger members of the staff to find out, does this really happen? How does it happen? So everybody was, as soon as Eli pitched it, everybody was pretty pumped about it.
That's so funny.
Standards and practices more than anybody really, because it was yeah, I don't think it all got adjudicated, you know, until the very, very end. The scripts kept getting noted and noted and noted.
Yes.
Verbiage had to change.
I think it came down to like how many times they could say dick pic. I think it was like you can say it once, and then the rest of the time it just has to be a picture, a text. But he got it in, which was impressive.
So funny. So funny. So when we are introduced to Ripley, we very quickly learned that he and Dr. Charles have history. What made you guys want to add in that backstory between their characters? It's a tough segue from dick pics, but I try.
Well, you know, just in terms of writing, you know, a drama, a hospital drama, it's like it gives you that, you know, that bit of friction and you know, something to uncover, you know, that you can just jump forward like to a different place than people who are just meeting each other for the first time. And so we kind of liked the idea, and also that Charles, it kind of highlighted a period of time, or at least just in that specific case where Charles, you know, has some regrets. That you know, so that's kind of a side that we don't, you know, often see. Not that Charles is perfect, but you know, he's pretty close to perfect, like professionally. So yeah, it felt like it opened up, you know, a lot of story, you know.
Yeah. I think for both characters, I feel like for Charles to have someone where he knows so much about his past, and he hasn't seen Ripley in all these years, so all he knows is this young kid who, you know, was troubled and had some violent tendencies. So he's going to be watching him to see, is this still the same guy? Is he safe to be with patients? And then Ripley, who the last thing he wants is for anybody to know about his past, has to coexist with someone who knows about the worst part of his history. So it just creates a very ripe atmosphere for a lot of different conflicts to emerge.
Yeah. We spoke with Luke earlier in the season, and he said that his understanding is that Ripley coming to Med was pure coincidence. Is that the case?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was it's also like one thing that, you know, we've obviously dramatized, but you know, sometimes more explicitly than others, is just like, you know, HIPAA violations, or just like the confidentiality that exists between doctors and their patients, you know, and particularly in Dr. Charles's field, you know, so that kind of puts him in this challenging place where he knows things and he has an experience that he can't communicate to anybody else, you know, that, and he takes the ethics of his profession so seriously, as he should. But it does create a lot of internal conflict in that, not to be able to have those, even the people that he might rely on to speak with, more openly, like Goodwin, and those doors are closed, which is it's tough. You can put yourself in that position, just keeping a secret, we all can kind of relate to that, and just it seems like it puts it was a conscious thing that we just decided, and I feel like this, a lot of that part of that story is kind of working or intriguing. I don't know how you guys feel about Ripley, I guess, is a big question.
We like him. I think we disagree on his romantic partner, but we like him.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, we really like Ripley a lot. We really like Ripley a lot.
I'm guessing the disagreement is one of you feels he should be with Hannah and the other feels he should not be with Hannah. Is that the core of the...
Yes.
I won't ask you to identify which party feels which way. But...
No, I'm happy to say it. I'm all aboard the Hannah and Ripley train. Bren is all aboard the Hannah and Archer train.
Yeah, we talk about it, so like it's fine.
It's not necessarily about Ripley, it's about Hannah.
Yeah, it's about Hannah more specifically. So
wait, but is this you guys calling them Dasher, or what is is that the nomenclature on the pod, or no?
I think the internet has adopted that.
Yeah.
I don't think we just still call them Hannah and Archer or Hannah and Ripley.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't really come up with ship names, but I hear Dasher is
the popular one.
Yeah.
I know if you guys coined that. I just want to give you proper credit if you
No, we cannot take credit for that.
No,
we cannot take credit for that. So going back to Dr. Charles and Ripley, though, they've been pretty civil here lately. Has Ripley forgiven Dr. Charles like 100%, or are there still kind of some feelings there for them to work out like as time goes on?
This is a good question, because I don't even know. Like, we all as individual writers have different opinions on the matter. I don't think so. I think even if you could say it consciously, you don't. It's especially for Ripley, or for any of us, the teen years are so
formative,
just fraught, and they're so formative. Yeah, and it's like you'll spend the rest of your life like kind of grappling with those, emotions and things. So we're never past that. Certainly from Ripley's standpoint, and then Charles also, like, it's not easy. I don't know if you see those scenes where he's like trying to kind of wrestle with an apology, trying to frame up like what he actually feels he might have done wrong or be responsible for, and some things that he might just be kind of coincidentally or correlate, was there that time of life, but really weren't, on him. And he takes that stuff, like, he doesn't like to misspeak, or just like offer things that are not honest, at least the experience, the joint experience he feels that they have. So yeah, I don't think he'll ever, I mean, they can get along and work together and even be really good friends, but like to me, they'll always have like a thing that will never fully resolved.
Yeah. And I feel like, the core of some of Ripley's anger towards Charles does come from this place of, the reason he's angry is because he feels abandoned by Charles, and he really respected Charles and really looked up to him. And I think at a time in his life when he desperately needed a father, Charles may have provided some of that, he might have been something of a father figure to him. So the flip side of the coin is, I also think he wants Charles's approval a lot of the time. And I think he's seeking that. And when I think it was the end of the last episode, when Charles sort of let him off the hook and said, you can settle the lawsuit, you got the sense that he wouldn't have done it without Charles's approval. So I think the anger is actually coming from a place of, he really respected and cared for this guy, and that's why the abandonment hurt so much.
Never even thought about that angle.
Yeah, me either. That makes sense though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's been fun to write because like I don't know, I think it was episode 11, right? When you kind of Meredith was referring that like when he was trying to talk to Goodwin, it kind of goes to the point we were making earlier where he can only tell Goodwin so much, and he can only tell Ripley so much that just to see, Oliver, we all love Oliver and he's so talented, and so giving him those kinds of moments to play where he's like got to be less than forthcoming even with the people that he's closest with, or just they're just so good to watch.
yeah. So in addition to learning a little bit about Ripley through Dr. Charles, we also learned about him through Sully this season as well. What made you guys want to explore so much of Ripley's past so soon after we were introduced to him as a character?
Meredith.
Well,
I'm trying to remember. That was where is that, episode 6?
you know what? Actually, I think we wanted to explore it even sooner, and our showrunners were very smart to say I think I had pitched it in like episode 3, and they're like, I think that's a little too soon. But I think it's like we had been hearing so much about Ripley's past, and he's so different now that we needed some context for what we had been hearing. And so Sully kind of gives us that picture of like, oh, that's where this guy came from. That's the kind of people he hung out with. That was kind of probably what he was like at that age. So it just felt like we had been talking about it. Now we needed to actually see some sort of visual representation of it. And I mean, the actor who plays Sully and Sully's girlfriend, Lynn, are just terrific and really, I think, have also brought to light this other side of Ripley. And when you see him interact with them, you're sort of seeing that young kid again and seeing, all the different shades that they bring out of Ripley too. I mean, the first time you really see they call him Rip, the old Rip, is when Sully comes back and, they start to tussle with each other.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's not completely accidental, but they're all friends. Like Daniel, and I'm sorry, who plays Lynn again? She's great. I should know her name. Hope, I believe. They're a real life couple, and in real life they're friendly with Luke.
Oh,
that's cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For my money, I felt like you really could. They were so talented, and they have that personal background that you really felt like it wasn't just us trying to like convince you, oh, these people knew each other back in the day, but like it really kind of felt lived in a way that's like that again, it's one of those things that's just when you find it, when it works, it's so great.
It was also good, in the same way that Charles is kind of a danger to Ripley because he knows his past. Sully also provides that too. Like every time he comes in, there's also the concern of what's Sully gonna say to Hannah. What are people gonna think when they know they're friends? And so, since Charles is never gonna blow his cover or talk about his past, it's nice to have another person that he has to manage and keep at bay to some extent.
Yeah. Ripley's also even kind of alluded to the issues with his mom in the past that we don't know like a ton about yet. I mean, obviously I know it's like really early. You guys probably haven't even thought about season 10 yet, but like, do you hope that we learn more about that in the future seasons?
Absolutely.
You hope so. I imagine that will be part of our discussion when we start back up. Maybe next week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we think we may be starting next week, so we may have answers to this very soon. But yeah, I mean, that's what's so great about when you introduce a character with a very rich history is that's one of the early discussions I'm sure will be, what aspect of it do we still feel like needs to be explored? What character is the best way to explore that? And maybe it will be bringing back, one of his parents or, someone else from his past.
Oh, yeah. So Dr. Charles's relationship with Liliana is also on the rocks after what happened with Pavel. We talked about this when we recorded yesterday. Are they broken up? Are they together? Is Dr. Charles sleeping on the couch? What is happening right now?
I think they're still together. I mean, they're still living together. She hasn't moved out. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some nights where, the distance between them in bed is quite wide. Because it's very difficult. I mean, she knows who her brother is, and I think has had her own dealings with him, but it's her brother. And I get the sense, it's really just the two of them in the United States. And so I think she feels this allegiance to them, and she's being put in a position where her boyfriend and her brother are at odds, and that's just a horrible place to be in. So they're still together, they're still living together, but I think it's quite icy at the moment.
Might even get icier by the end of the season.
Oh,
Yes.
oh boy.
No, just a hint at this.
Someone we were also introduced early on this season was Zola. I know pretty quickly the fandom made a lot of comparisons of Zola to Will, obviously given her history with like not following the rules but having everyone's best interests at heart. Did you guys feel the need to like fill that hole that Will left in the ED with like another troublemaker? Is that kind of why you made her a similar-ish character, I should say?
That might have contributed to it. I mean, I don't want to we haven't spoken obviously in a couple of years. Nick Will Halstead was so central to the show, for 8 seasons, and Nick played that character so beautifully that when we got back after the strike, there was like a definite sense of loss, and just we were trying to wrestle with like, well, how do you fill that void? What kind of stories could we tell with a character like Will Halstead in here that that we still kind of want to be able to tell. So yeah, it's hard to know like how where conscious decisions come and then and less subconscious decisions.
Right.
They burble up, and then you try to wrestle with them and deal with them. So there might have been some of that. Yeah.
It was kind of interesting. I mean, I sort of think of her as like a young Halstead who was never tamed. Like Halstead matured and tamed over the years, but it was kind of telling the story of like, what if that hadn't happened? What other path could he have gone down? And that ended up being Zola's journey of what happens when you just keep going over the line, over the line. At some point, there will be a consequence you can't come back from.
Oh, okay. Which I guess segues into the next question, which, we were both pretty surprised when she was actually fired and never came back. Was the plan for her always to be on the show just for that duration, or did things happen that kind of made that occur?
Sophia had a movie. I'd like to think, I don't want to, if I remember correctly, it's hard when you're managing like a show, especially an ensemble cast and introducing new characters, and without getting too into the weeds, it's like, oh well, because we have so many doctors coming and going, and that feels like to some extent is representative of the real world. That as a show, sometimes we'll be like, oh, we know we're gonna use you for like this arc, 4 or 5 episodes, and then in the back of our head, or maybe even like contractually, we'll be like, well, there's an opportunity that this could become a real, a regular thing, if the marriage works and like the stories are sparking, and then sometimes you're in that period and the actor gets another, I think Sophia booked a movie, and so there was going to be a natural hole in the schedule, and so then you're left making like decisions that are, I don't know, it's like everything's kind of a trade-off. It's like, did we put this on pause and maybe have this opening that's kind of hanging there for like that could last maybe up until season 10, or do we do something more dramatic and concrete? And for this particular thing that just, it felt like it was, that's the direct, decision we made, so, her exit, we kind of like, we definitely ramped it up more than we might do, and underscored the characters, maverick qualities, maybe more than if we had made a different decision.
There's
go ahead, Gina.
There's a fan theory floating around that the shocking news that Crockett is supposed to receive in the finale has to do with her. Yeah, I'm trying to like read your faces, get your reaction. Yeah.
I will, it's not a bad theory. And if you don't take, maybe even after you watch it, there might be something there even like that I hadn't really thought about, that they're not completely independent, ideas,
Yeah.
Okay.
I see what you're thinking, Stephen. I'm thinking the same thing. Yeah.
There's definitely like Crockett was trying his best. I think he did see something, that he really kind of respected and honored and found, promising, with Zola. And, so he really, I think, felt like a personal failure that he wasn't able to like keep Zola on a path that would have enabled, her, career to flourish at Med. And so I think there's a part of him that feels that loss.
Yeah.
Speaking of Crockett and Zola and that kind of mentor-mentee relationship, like what did you guys like about writing for that relationship? Because it really felt like you said that he really took her under his wing, or he took her under his wing, and he was trying to really put her on this path, and obviously it didn't last as long as he wanted, but like what did you guys like about that relationship?
I liked seeing Crockett as a mentor. I feel like we've seen him mentored by other doctors a lot, but we haven't seen him as much in that role. And I felt like in a lot of ways he was a very generous mentor, and that's why he kept giving her chance after chance. Like, he's, as a character, I think when he sees something in you, he does not give up on you. And even though in the end I think he got a little burned by her, I think it really speaks to his character, this belief he had in her and wanting to keep supporting her, and why he kept championing her. And it really, I enjoyed seeing him in that light, because it felt like a version of Crockett we really haven't seen before.
Yeah, definitely. We also, Stephen, go ahead. Did I cut you off?
No, I was muted because my dog is on a squeak toy, so I apologize.
That's okay.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who has that problem. So, yeah. So we also got to see Crockett join the board this season, which is another kind of place where we put him and somewhere he's kind of uncomfortable. What did you guys like about having the dynamic of a doctor getting to be in on the decision-making process?
Well, it actually happens. I mean, that was partly where it first came from, was finding out that oftentimes hospitals have one position on the board that's reserved for a physician at the hospital. And it seemed like it would be an interesting thing to play out, and how that might cause conflicts for Crockett if he's got to make decisions where he's on one side of it, he's wearing the board member hat, on the other side, he's wearing the doctor hat. And I think throughout the seasons, we've been seeing Crockett get more and more responsibility at the hospital and kind of move up this food chain. And especially as he was becoming Zola's mentor, it provided this great conflict of Zola could really, derail his rise on the board. And she also, I think there was an episode where she was saying, you're just, you're only going this way because you want to protect your position on the board. So it really forced him to kind of weigh, what did he want for himself and his career against the greater good. And I think just gave him a new challenge to deal with this season.
Goodwin's big storyline this year, or one of her bigger storylines, is obviously her new relationship with Dr. Washington. I guess what made now the right time to really finally see her find love?
Hmm.
Well, I know we talked about, um, Bert, we've been talking about, like, Bert's been a part of her life and part of the show since the first season or second. I can't remember, second season maybe. So we knew we were starting to talk about, like, her managing, the potential for, his care should he have something like Alzheimer's. And then we started talking about this, I think, last year even. And we didn't quite get to it. I think I can't remember all the reasons, but Meridith was like, well, we got to have something more at stake, for, Goodwin, when she's undergoing this this challenge with her ex-husband. And so that's kind of where the thinking started. And so we jumped right in. This year we thought would be more interesting just to see them, be involved versus, like, starting from scratch. And then, the actors are obviously so good. And I think, if I'm correct, Apatha said something like this is like the first time she's had like a kiss in a romantic relationship on screen.
Yeah, I think it was
Which
like
was, like,
one of,
shocking to us, but, like,
Yeah.
considering how long she's worked, in so many different things. So she threw herself totally into it. And I don't know, it just is like, it's such a moving, it felt like I mean, it continues to be. And not that there's another turn coming in the finale. But it's been very emotionally satisfying and enriching. We get a lot of comments from fans, just to see people that are not starting their career or younger, just like the challenges of those types of relationships that you don't often get to see. And anyway, it's, I don't know, we're really enjoying writing it.
I mean, it's fun to see, we see Goodwin as the head of the hospital, and she's in charge, and she's so strong, and she's a boss. And it's also fun to see what Dr. Washington brings out of her, which is sort of this giddiness and this excitement and this nervousness. So in the same way, like Ripley brought out new shades in Charles, it's also been really fun to see the way Dr. Dennis brings out these new shades in Miss Goodwin.
Yeah. Bert's story this season kind of brings up another question about, like, the challenges of the strike, because obviously his dementia diagnosis came earlier on in the season. We're seeing this through. There is going to be another twist in the finale. Was there pressure at all to squeeze 22 episodes worth of content into 13?
That's a great question.
I don't think it was like external pressure, but we are used to thinking like beginnings and ends, like, so probably subconsciously, right? You are by definition squeezing a concept that would have taken 22 episodes into 13. Like, hopefully it doesn't feel rushed, when you're watching it, and you don't really feel like you're doing it when you're doing it. But I can't say that's not a factor.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about Maggie now, obviously Maggie and Ben get divorced pretty early on in the season. I don't remember which episode specifically, but pretty early on. Did you guys ever talk about them, like, working things out, or was after what happened at the end of last season, was it always like pretty much divorced at this point?
I think because they had been so, like, together and then apart and then back together, it felt like the audience might grow a little tired if we went through that cycle again of even just like seeing them come apart, because we had already watched that when I'm forgetting, her high school sweetheart came back. And yeah, great memory. Wow. So yeah, I think part of the reason it was so kind of abrupt and that was also somewhat the gift of the strike is you could sort of jump forward in people's stories. So Maggie's story felt like a good opportunity to take that and start her on this new path kind of immediately at the beginning of the season.
Hmm. Since we didn't get to talk to you last year, this is the perfect time to ask about that storyline with Maggie and Grant. What was the idea behind that? Because I mean, all last season, our conversations were just like, well, she made her bed. I don't know why, but she did.
If I remember correctly, and it was a while ago, I think it was about seeing Maggie in that, like Maggie is, I think we think of Maggie as somewhat like the moral compass of the show. Like you kind of look to Maggie to be like, is this right? Is this wrong? So to put Maggie in a situation where she's following her feelings and doing something perhaps a little questionable felt like a really interesting position to put her in. And also it felt like, she's been married to Ben for a while, and it might be interesting to see where might be the cracks in that marriage. And I think that's really what Grant was about. I'm not sure it was ever so much that she was going to end up with this guy, but what is he providing that she's not getting in her marriage? I think that was really the beginning of the end of their relationship.
Makes sense. So we did meet Dr. Johnson, Lauren, LJ, whatever we call him a bunch of different names. But a few times last season. I guess what made you guys want to bring him back this year?
Well, it's like sexy helicopter pilots who also can do surgery, they don't grow on trees. So you got to use them. So that was a start, it was like, just, I think, there, and then I think we'd established, at least off screen, there's a rapport with Henderson and our cast and certainly with Marlene. So like, we knew going in that there was like, oh, I'd like to do maybe there's some scenes that we could do together. So it kind of helped that to have that familiarity going in. And it also like definitely conscious because of the stories, the travails that we've put Maggie through, there's been so much that it felt like an opportunity to just kind of take a pause on like heavy stuff and just let Maggie have a moment to, breathe and participate in life and like, have a little joy. So it all kind of came together as like, oh, this will, that there could be some fun, to be had.
It was kind of a nice contrast. The way she started with Ben was so heavy. They met, doing chemo together. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of nice to see Maggie develop a crush and kind of go through the stages without this heaviness hanging over it. So there was a deliberate choice to, as Stephen said, make it a little lighter, a little more fun, just because we haven't gotten to see Maggie go through something like that.
Yeah. We call him Hot Helicopter Guy. So yeah, that's about right. So can you guys clarify exactly what his background is? So he's a doctor, he's going for the trauma fellowship, but he's also a paramedic and he's military. We're a little confused.
He's a jack of all trades. Yes, he is certified in trauma. So that means he did a residency in trauma. I think because he works for a rural clinic and he has the skill from the Army that he can fly helicopters, he also transports patients. So he's both a helicopter pilot, he is a trauma doctor. I don't believe he's a paramedic. I think that is but maybe that was somewhere in his past, but he's definitely both a helicopter pilot and has credentials in trauma surgery.
Got it.
So far. We'll see what else he can do.
Probably everything. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably everything.
He's kind of Med Severide, isn't he?
Kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of.
Is that Severine's got like all those with all those was he in the army?
No, but there was a recent episode where he basically had to survive and yeah, somehow did. It was yeah, he's resourceful. So
Okay.
I will say this is where our medical consultants' heads explode a little bit when we say, well, now the helicopter pilot is also a trauma surgeon. And we say, can that be done? They say, well, and they hem and haw. And then as soon as we get the yes, we hang up the phone and start writing. So yeah.
That's funny. LJ made his feelings pretty clear for Maggie during the helicopter crash, but then when she tried to bring it up again in the next episode, it kind of seemed like he didn't remember telling her all of that. Does that come back up in the finale, or we're gonna have to keep waiting on that?
I think it was more just kind of the awkwardness of feeling like you revealed a lot, thinking maybe you're about to die, and then you didn't die, and you're feeling a little shy about it. But he still very much has feelings for Maggie, and there will be a sense in the finale of some forward movement with them. But I think it was just a little bit of, I think he remembered what he said. I think he just felt a little shy about it, because it was quite a big declaration, and then he ended up living.
Yeah. In episode 11, we're introduced to a new medical student, Naomi. What made the end of the season the right time to introduce her character?
Well, I will say that we Ashley, who's the actress playing Naomi, she auditioned for maybe Zola or another role. I can't remember exactly what. We all kind of fell in love with her, and then it didn't work. She didn't feel right for Zola, or I'm not sure it was Zola, but the original role. But she was always like that. She was kind of back there in our consciousness, like we really need to find something for Ashley to do. And so I don't know, it felt like, it's, I don't know how a conscious decision was to be like, oh, it needs to be like now versus like the start of next season. It might have just been like the opportunity to have the actress available, and then the just strike while the iron's hot, and get this character in there and see what can happen. So we always need like the medical student characters, just in terms of like storytelling. It helps having that perspective, and they're obviously great audience. What do you call them? Not avatars, but just ways that they connect, because the audience can connect with that feeling of inexperience and being in over your head. And so they're kind of evergreen, that you always need the med student characters. So I don't know that there's like, I don't know if I answered the question directly, but there was a lot of like little variables that went into her introduction, at the end of this season.
Is the plan, I mean, obviously I know you guys said you're not back yet in the writer's room for next year, but is the plan for her to stick around next year and maybe interact with some of our other intern friends, or that's still pretty unknown right now?
I think it's unknown right now. I will say we all really love the actress. Like it was funny, actually, my mom watches every episode of Chicago Med, and she's like, I love that like there's something about her energy that's so fresh. And I loved the episode where, Archer came down on her. I think there's definitely potential for her to stick around. We just have to get back in the room and figure out what the game plan is. But the actress is terrific.
That's good. It has been announced that Diane and Andy will not be the showrunners for season 10. What are you going to miss about them, and what's a lesson you've learned from them and will continue to use in your career?
Oh.
Well, you want to go for you? Who wants to go first?
Well, they gave me my first job in television, so I sort of owe everything to Andy and Diane, and I shared with them with this as well, but the number one thing I learned from them is to lead with kindness. Like, they are two of the nicest people. I never heard them raise their voice to anyone. They treat everybody with complete and total respect. And this is a hard business, and it can make some people mean. And so the lesson I got from them is do not let it make you mean, because you can be very successful and also be very kind, which I was very glad to learn that early in my career, because I think sometimes with the wrong kind of boss you can go down the other path. But that was just something I'll always really treasure about them. They're just two of the nicest people you'll ever meet.
Yeah, it seems impossible when you're like to believe that, I've been looking for the dark underbelly. I actually worked with them on a show that they had created 15 years ago. So I knew them in that capacity. And then when they came on Med, I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy that they're there. And I figured, the grind of doing 22 episodes would eventually reveal like the truth about, them. But no, they are exactly like Meredith said, and just fun. It made the experience just a total joy. The humor and the warmth and the compassion, and I think that extends to the way they view the characters and this world. Is with that kindness, and ability to accept people, the way they are. That they'll be incredibly missed, both personally and creatively. But they've been doing it for 9 years, so they have the right to like go find new challenges. And then we have to collectively move forward, which we will, but with a hole in our hearts.
Yeah.
Sure. You guys go in next week with no leader, or is there
There will be a new leader. I don't think we can say yet because I'm not sure all the deals are closed and everything's been finalized. I'm sure deadline it might actually be whatever. You'll find out soon enough. But we've both met with the person who seems totally lovely, and looking forward to the future.
So we'll kind of wrap things up, obviously, with the finale coming on Wednesday. I know you can't give like a ton away, but describe the Wednesday's finale in 5 words
or more, if you'd like,
or more. Yeah, but 5 words.
Does it have to create a sentence or just 5 separate words?
You can do it however you want. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe collectively we can do it, Hoot, if we each throw out different words.
Melancholic.
I'm gonna say, especially how it starts, sexy.
Oh, okay.
Surprising.
Challenging.
Heartbreaking.
No.
That's what we don't want.
Yeah, no. Last year's finale was really hard on me. If we could avoid that this year, that would be great.
Can you remind me? With
Will.
Yeah.
I share your sentiments. I think we all were pretty heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
Just a shout out to Nick, who is expecting, I don't know when, but there was a new his second child is due they might already be out in the world. I apologize, Nick, but yes.
Oh, that's exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And did everybody see, so I can say this because it's on People magazine, but did everybody see Tori's exciting news too?
Yes.
That
Did.
she's expecting a child as well.
So exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, great. That's about all we've got for you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you,
It's
thank you.
always fun. Yeah. Real quick, tell everybody where we can find you guys on social media. Steven, I know you're not big on social media. Meredith, are you on socials?
I am. I'm also not big on social. I'm trying to think, what is my Instagram handle? Let's see if I can even find it.
Yeah, I'm looking mine up. It's
I see my
I get-
name, but my handle is. This tells you
yeah,
how
it's like,
active
it's like
I am.
us Hootstein, but the 2 O's are like zeros, you know. To
Mine is
differentiate myself from my sister, whose name is Susan, and who took the name before I could get there.
I'm Mary Boot. And I, for no other reason than, you know how you have to put in a name, and like the first couple of names I put in, they said, that's taken. So I just put that in, and that was the first thing that wasn't taken. So
Okay.
It works.
so you can
Yeah.
find me. Yes.
Cool.
And I'm gonna see you guys in person
Yeah.
Yes.
in 2 weeks or so, less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Week and a half
in
about,
Austin.
Yeah.
If you don't want to come to the panels, either one, I won't take it personally.
No, that's not happening.
Yeah.
We'll be there.
We'll be there.
But it'll be good to see you guys.
Yes,
Yeah,
we're
that's
looking forward
exciting.
to
Have
it.
you been to Austin?
I have never been to Austin. This is the number one reason why I accepted the invitation to be on a panel was for the barbecue and the experience. So
Yep.
unfortunately, I do have to actually do the panels in
Yeah.
order for them to fly me out there. Otherwise, it's just all about my first time in Austin.
Yeah, the food scene is an equal part of ATX Festival.
Yeah.
It's just as big. So yeah, there's one barbecue spot we always go to. I can't remember the name of the other one. We'll hit you up with recommendations.
Okay.
We'll let you know
Yeah.
our favorite spots. So
Yeah.
but yeah,
Thank
we will
you.
see you next week. Meredith, so nice to meet you.
Yes,
Hope we
thank
didn't
you,
throw
thank you.
away. Yeah.
No, thank you. And thank you guys so much for your continued support of all the shows. It's really special what you do, and we really appreciate
We're
it.
looking forward to hearing what you have to say after the finale.
Yeah, we'll be tuning in.
Tuning in.
Sounds good. Well, thank you guys so much. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
We'll see you guys
You too.
soon.